What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Double Tours podcast. We're doing it live. We're coming at you with DarfMike and Liam Slevin. As always, Liam is a writer at Dust 2. DarfMike is a caster who most recently was at Philadelphia. That wasn't English. I just stumbled over my words there.
You got in there. You got in there. If they're in this chat, they probably know who I am. If you're in this chat and you don't know who I am, I'm a little confused on your chain of getting to here, but I would like to know.
I think a lot of people just kind of stumble and find their way upon our content and our show sometimes. But yeah, so we have a lot to talk about. Obviously, we're a week out of FRAG. Pro League is going on right now as Furia is getting a 16-0 over Movistar Riders, which is very funny because in the outline, I think I noted down, does Furia look weaker? Should we ever get concerned? And seeing as how Liquid struggled against Movistar last night, that might not have aged so well. So how you doing, Mike? How was your week? How was casting FRAG?
It was good. FRAG was a little while ago now. It was 2 weeks ago at this point. Just good. Always takes a little bit of recovery from Philadelphia just because it's high octane all the way, no breaks. But yeah, life's good. Doing up some online work these days. Off to some travels in a little bit, and living the caster life.
We love that. Liam, how you doing, my friend? What's going on, man?
Yeah, not too bad. Got a good chance to watch some good complexity in ESL Pro League. I seen you guys had a lot of fun at FRAG. I seen we have some funny content with people trying out the Philly cheesesteaks and stuff. That was pretty enjoyable. But,
yeah, it was those cheesesteaks at the end of the day did not necessarily last as much as I think, and they might have affected some of the rankings. I would say.
Yeah, turns out cold cheesesteaks
not the best. All right, so let's just jump right into it. So we're going to be covering Philadelphia, we're going to be covering Pro League, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the RMRs. Those are our heavy hitters. And we'll probably get the good hour for you guys. So Philadelphia, we had 4 European teams show up: Apex, Big Academy, Black Hands, 7 a.m. All fell short. And once again, Philadelphia stays in American hands. Impressive overall. I do want to talk about Apex first because obviously they were the most star-studded team to show up, and I think that we were all pretty surprised at honestly how they performed. It was not to the standard that I thought that we would expect from players like Sticko, Jacob, and Shocked. And we saw that early in groups on the Saturday when they lost 2-0 to Squirtle Squad, Homeless, X Gaming Gladiators, now known as Nouns, which is going to be terrible for all the casters when they have to talk about that. So, Mike, you want to talk about that one first?
Yeah, let's do it.
Were you casting that game?
I was casting the Homeless, the first one, the victory from Squirtle Squad, Homeless, Nouns, whatever you want to call them. We'll call them Nouns now. Thanks for supporting North American CS. Yeah, I mean, look, the reality is this was massively disappointing for Apex. This is when you come across as a European team with high salaries, with a high budget. I don't know the exact ones, but I'm sure they're not spending cheap on this team. When you've got, a former major winner in Shocks, when you've got storied players like Shocks, Jacob, Stico, when you come in here and you lose to a team of literally calling themselves Homeless, it's an embarrassment. It's the inherent risk with coming to Philadelphia. Now that there's a 100K prize pool, teams are looking at this and going, I mean, this is an easy back. Come here, shit on NACS, leave. Except if you don't, then you're the team that came in that's supposed to be competing to be one of the best in the world, that lost to an unsigned North American squad and then got toppled by Big Academy. I mean, they really never looked dominant in the way that they should have, is the other thing, right? Even if, you had some series where you stumbled, other series they should have cleaned house, and they didn't. They're a very new team. They're clearly still figuring things out, or at least the swap with Shocks is new, right? Seems like comms are still being figured out. How they want to play things are still being figured out. But frankly, they didn't look polished either. And the individuals were concerning. Knock looked really good. Knock still looks like Knock. He's a very exciting AWP player. JL, I thought, took some great space at times. Was a solid entry. And I think Stico was a great closer for them. Shocks and Apex Shocks and Jacob were frankly lacking for most of the event. Individually, it was pretty rough. I think that Shocks is still figuring out his roles a little bit, but I don't know what the deal is with Jacob because they were not on point. Let's put it that way.
And you really expected Shocks and Jacob to be the ones that were going to be taking charge and leading space. And I mean, when we look at that specific game against Nouns, like they were Shocks went -22, had like a 0.64 rating. Dan Wu, favorite friend of the pod, had like when plus 16, 1.5, like absolutely dominated, had an ADR over 110. Like, you know, it was just funny. And I remember talking to them after the game. I was like, what the fuck happened? And they were like, we learned a lot. Like we lost it in that game. And that was our first real tough challenge, which they did because they had the group of death. It was like them, Team One.
But they were the reason why that was supposed to be the group of death.
Yeah. Yes. Understandable. That they are the reason why it's the group of death. But it obviously is tough. And they then were able to go through. But yeah, I think it was tough on them, and he even had the overtime game on Mirage. And that was back and forth.
What I will say, credit to Sixy here individually. I think Sixy, above all other players, is a player who has enormous motivation come through from spite. And so when he senses a moment to spite another team, Danny just ascends to another level of play. And so as soon as he realized it like ticks in his brain, he's like, man, it would really suck for Apex to lose to us right now. You're going to see the greatest Danny you've ever seen. The dude is an absolute stud when he knows the other team has more to lose than he does. I swear to God, it's like he hits his Super Saiyan mode. That is the motivation factor. If we could figure out how to put Sixty's brain in that mode constantly, he'd be the greatest player of all time.
Probably.
I think it's pretty funny to note, like Philadelphia 16, we had Apex Rebels come over. They were the first like real kind of EU team. They weren't like, did anyone really know any Apex Rebels players before that event?
Well,
but then they went and nearly won it, and then they've placed better than the Apex main team did at Philadelphia 17. And I know that way we like hype up Shocks and Jacob and Sicko, they're all big names. They've done so much, but like JL and Knock are probably the two best components of that team, and I still don't think Apex have what it takes, because like even when they put this team together before they brought in Shocks, everyone was like, oh, they're going to be a real like top tier 2 EU team. This was before like the last major, I believe it was, that they were put together, and they did nothing really. Like they did nothing of note. They didn't make any big events. I don't think they made the RMR with like those big names. So
4 qualifiers. No, it's been really tough for them. So obviously was a lot of issues there. The other teams that we should talk about, Big Academy. I want to say a lot of good things about Big Academy. I think that they were one of the more professional teams there in terms of their performance, attitude, and just overall like the way that they handled themselves as an organization there. It was nice to see
efficiency.
Them. Right. And they ran through a lot of teams, like absolutely ran through. But I also think that they had one of the weaker brackets out of any like strong team there. Like it did not seem tough at all. If I bring up, oh God, have I lost my Wikipedia page? If I bring this
Probably.
up, yeah, like even their group was like Timberman, Victorum, Argon, and Argon Esports. Like they lost one map to Timberman, fine. And then their run was Electrify Steel, and then Apex, who already looked pretty weak, but that was 2-1, and then they played Evil Geniuses white in the final. Like
they also 2-0'd Apex in the LCQ as well, which is interesting to note. Like they had their number for.
Yeah. So it's like these guys are good, and it was really nice to see. But I don't know. I liked a lot of their players. We had that interview that we did with Sin, who then also got compared in that HLTV article to like one of the best up and coming like players based off of his current stats. Like I think there's a lot of really good players on that Big Academy team, and I think they're doing something right.
Yeah, I think Big Academy can be like a real testament towards like how good the academy system has become in the last year or two. Like when academy teams were first brought in, everyone was like, no, we can't do a conflict of interest. They're going to be in the same tournaments as their main teams. But the fact that they brought in the We Play League, we've seen so many good players come through it. Like Mouse NXT, like a player just got picked up from, or is about to get picked up from 7am, who are another team we're going to talk about. So there's something clearly going right over there with the academy teams.
I mean, speaking about Big Academy, talking about their weaker run through, you can only beat the teams that are put in front of you, and they beat the teams handily. The only team at this event, really, I mean, like, there's maybe two who could have given them a bit more of a run for the money. Team 1 was looking good. That would have been an interesting matchup. ATK was looking good. That would have been an interesting matchup. Maybe Homeless would have been interesting. But frankly, I mean, you beat the teams that are in front of you. They look really good doing it. And I don't think, based on the way that they played, the style that they played, and what they were able to achieve, I wouldn't be terribly concerned about them going up against the other teams, right? Because they played in such a way that they managed to take games late. They managed to take games close. Even when it seemed like they were down, they were really good at rallying in the late moments. It's a big part of what put them up over Apex. I was really impressed with the Big Academy team. Being, I heard about Aqua just from some of the players or some of the talent big upping the Academy players from that league. But I was really impressed with a lot of what happened with that Big Academy team. I think they're well built. I think they're well constructed. I think that it's an exciting project for sure, and I think that we could definitely see some of those players transition over to the main team, and I wouldn't be remotely surprised to see that happen in the next year, unless Big impresses in its current iteration. I mean, I think that squad is probably coming up on the time where it's like, okay, let's see what we got in these Academy players. I think that might happen before too long, and I think they deserve the chance. I definitely do. So, well-deserved spot. I'm glad they lost the final, though.
We should talk about the UK teams because they were the ones that first kind of announced that they were coming over, Blackhand and 7 a.m. Blackhand coming over. I'm wrong here. They didn't fail to get out of the LCQ.
No, they knocked at 7 a.m. out of the LCQ.
Yes, I knew it was one of the British teams. I forgot. I switched them up. They're all the same to me. They all speak the same silly language. So they failed to get out of. But the problem, and I think that we should talk about, is that they went 0-2 in groups, which there's a lot of talk from my British friends about how good UKCS was going to be, and they came in here.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk.
Nothing.
Normally, it never is. Is usually the way this works out in my experience. No, I mean, genuinely, I think the guys came over and had a good time. I think they had some fun. I was impressed with pieces of 7 a.m. I didn't necessarily get to watch Blackhand live, but from what I did see, I was impressed with pieces there. But, I mean, the UK team scene is very similar to the NA scene, where there's not a lot of support. There's not a lot of teams. Unless you're on to Endpoint, which at this point is barely even remotely UK, there's just not a lot of financial opportunity there. So it's a similar situation. Your mixed teams, you're figuring this out. Like, I think 7 a.m. was put together by this guy, Emperor, they haven't been together very long. Blackhand hadn't been together very long. 7 a.m. have already lost their Opera, signed to Mouse NXT to this next project. So it's very similar to the US scene, where it's just like, you're not going to be able to keep 5 together very long. If someone shines, they're probably going to get yoinked to something else. Like, rosters rise and fall pretty quickly. So I think they had some fun. I think they had a good time, but I don't think they were ever serious title contenders.
No, I don't think they were. I was hoping for a little bit more. I think the problem is also that when you lose to Davenport University, it's never really a good sign. I mean, I don't want to knock Davenport University. I don't really want to knock the program here, but like, come on. I mean, and we'll talk about it in a second, but like, even EG Black, which we actually should talk about now. So moving on to the NA FRAG teams, talking about all of our boys, and I'm going to talk about Team 1 in there as well, because Team 1 is NA, no matter what anyone else says. Evil Geniuses Black, they looked weak, like a lot weaker than I think we've expected from them. And now it could just be Rush and Stan and the veterans trying to work with the kids and figuring out, are they going to be like, how much more is that going to work? But like, and I don't want to speak too much to the players, and I don't want to get yelled at here, but like, some of the players just didn't look like they wanted to be there. It was weird. They like, it could have just been that they're sick and they're traveling and they had to fight the LCQ, but like, some players just didn't look super excited to be at FRAG, which I thought was disappointing.
First of all, they can't be sick of the traveling. This is not a team that's traveled a whole lot.
I know.
This is their opportunity to travel. The Young Guns, especially, I know they were excited to be there. Look, I mean, I think this is a bit of a wake-up call for Stanislaw about where his career's at. I don't think he ever imagined himself being at a Fragadelphia. I think that there was a moment of sort of, this is where I'm at right now. And I think that expressed itself a little bit more than perhaps people were expecting going into it. But, sometimes you need those wake-up calls. Sometimes you need those moments to realize where you're at. I think that stylistically in the server, I'm going to talk about the in the server performance. I think that they were trying to play a very disciplined brand of CS that doesn't always work when met with the chaos of Fragadelphia matches and people screaming at you in madness. They were trying to play. Stanislaw is clearly installing the Stanislaw system, right? And they're trying to play to that system, and they're trying to play a long, patient, slow game and very like to the percentages and whatnot. And sometimes at a frag, you just got to turn your brain off and click heads because, you know, it's advanced shitters in the server against you, but they're just going to run at you and click if you give them the space. And so no disrespect to any of their opponents, but I think that's part of why we saw them get pushed in some of the earlier matches. I think they got more willing to get scrappy as the tournament went on, and they sort of realized the situation where, you know, you're not going to have perfect calls because there's some guy in the audience yelling at you to take a fucking shower or whatever, you know? So it's always going to be a little chaotic. It's always going to be a little wild. That's just kind of the Fragadelphia vibe. I think that's also part of what maybe caught a team like Apex off guard. We'll leave that alone.
No, I mean, I think we could talk about it for a second. Like, I think it is different, right? I think a lot of these upper tier pros are just used to, okay, we play one BO3 a day and then we're done, right? We have the one main thing. Here, it's you're in your arena, you're registering for your group at 9 a.m. So that means that you're up by 7, you're ready to play. You're not out of there until like 10 o'clock at night. Like, it is an all day affair, and it happens for 3 days in a row. And the other sucky part is, if you just have, like, if you're feeling off because now all of a sudden you're in an uncomfortable environment, everyone's screaming, everything's loud, you can't really focus that well, and you have one bad BO1 and your Apex coming in playing the LCQ, too bad, dude. You're screwed because look at it. Now you're in the lower quality, and that's it. And it's like
all the way through, but yes.
Right. But you
get
my
point.
Like, it's
get good.
I was on a roll. I appreciate
Get good, Ryan. Get good is the answer to that. Come sweat it out, Fragadelphia. That'll put the endurance on. But what I will say about EG, taking it back to EG for a moment, I think they're lacking firepower right now. I think Rush is stepping into those firepower roles, which is an adjustment from what he's been doing for the last like 2 years of his career. So that's going to take some time, but I think he has the moments, and I think the individual form can be there for him to be a firepower piece. I think that we need to see Wiz step up more consistently on that AWP. I'm very excited for what Walco's going to do in this roster. I don't know if this roster is ever going to be like upper end NA competitive, but I just want to see Walco develop out of it. I think he's the piece. I think Chop is still what I think Chop is, which is a very good, super consistent player who deserves more credit. I think that Walco developing within this, now that he's not in-game leading as an individual, is the thing that's most exciting out of this EG Black roster.
Yeah.
I
still...
Go ahead. No?
I was going to say, I still don't think it's time to worry about EG Black. Like you said, Stanislaw is clearly trying to put in a system there, which like they're not going to be used to since it was Classy and Hex before. So I think, like you said, it's always going to be hard at a Fragadelphia when you're playing against those advanced teams that are just like going to run at you, like you said. So I still think they just need a bit more time to develop. I think people are probably batting them down a lot because they didn't perform here and they haven't done much traveling and got a chance to play many events. But I'm still excited to see what they do. I think Rush is going to add a lot of experience, and that was like when they put together the blueprints. That was one of the ones that I like pitched for. I was like, send him down with the younger guys. He clearly seems like level-headed, and he has like a good bit of experience behind him. So
yeah, the other AG team though, EG White. I mean, I think it was the Michael Jordan flu game, except it was for like 3 days straight. Those kids went in. They went to Melbourne. They flew straight to Philly. They had some cold with them. They decided to give it to me, and I've been on my ass for the last week and a half. I'm not joking. Like, this thing has like actually killed me. And like them, they tested positive. They tested God. They tested every single day. They tested negative for COVID.
It wasn't COVID.
It wasn't COVID, because the other thing is I come back and I'm like, oh shit, I think I have COVID because of them. And I test every single day, still negative. So
it's called the land flu.
Land flu, yeah.
Classic.
The Fragadelphia flu, traditional every year. I always get it. But yeah, they came in. They were sick all the time. They had this miserable flu, which couldn't make you think, or this miserable cold that couldn't make you think. And listen, they win. They dropped, I think it was only 2 maps the entire event. They dropped 2 maps. They dropped one early on in the LCQ to friggin' like some just not good team. I think it was 7 a.m. I think they dropped a map to 7 a.m. They did.
Yes.
They dropped one map to 7 a.m. and then the
they
next
16
map
out
that they drop. Yeah. and then the next map that they dropped was against Big Academy in the final. Like, they were unreal. They were an unreal team. They were probably the most dominant team in the entire event. And they were sick the whole time.
Yeah, I think this was a really important event for EG White, especially since like clearly it could be going down a road of like losing confidence with like going over to Melbourne, getting battered over there. Like they're not playing in ESEA tournaments anymore since that's where EG White's going to reside. So or EG Black. So yeah, I think this was a really important one for them, not only in the sense of them going in there and getting a good performance, but like you can clearly see that it gave them a lot of confidence by winning it. Like John G was super hyped, like they were all like delighted with it, and also it keeps Fragadelphia and NA, so they took down the big bad Germans that were also just children, but.
Yeah, the big bad Germans that were children, and also, and I want to give them credit, like the emotion on their faces after the loss. Like I felt really, really bad for them, but they were like, and it was really weird. Sam, and Jeff, and Jacob were all just like walking in Philly the day after because our flights were until 6:00, and we just see them randomly in Old City walking around getting cheesesteaks. We're like, "Hey guys," and they're just like, "Oh hi, what are you doing?" And I'm like, "Little German boy in Philadelphia."
They're enjoying their lives. It was I mean, for a lot of them, it was probably their first time in NA, and it may have been their first time traveling internationally for Counter-Strike as well, right? Or out of EU at the very least. So that's exciting, man. But talking about EG White, dude, yes. I'm so happy for this team. They were thrilled by it. Here's the thing. You're talking about players and teams that are uncomfortable at FRAG. These motherfuckers were raised at FRAG. Like these are the FRAG gamers. Collectively, the number of Fragadelphias they'd attended, I mean, it was upwards of like 30 between the six of them, including Munster as a coach. Like they have been, DJ I think had been to 6 or 7 Fragadelphias just himself. These guys have been going for years. They've been going, in the before times. They were one of the few teams that actually had members that sort of knew what Fragadelphia once was, and what it had gotten back to. But I'm so happy that they took a dub. John G already had one Fragadelphia under his belt. He won Fragadelphia 15 with Bad News Bears. But for the rest of the players, this is their first Fragadelphia win. And they were thrilled. I mean, it was DJ was emotional about it. Again, he'd been to so many. And just to get that win, to get that validation, to get that, $40,000 first place prize, that's huge for the team. To recognize that, one of the hardest things as a team that's adjusting to an international level of Counter-Strike is just maintaining your confidence through it. Because you have to know you're going to get shit on the first time you go over, right? And that's one of the things that killed that Bad News Bears roster, is they went over, they got shit on, and they lost confidence in themselves, and the internal comms went chaotic. This is a big win for reinforcing to the EG White guys that they're on the right track, that they're improving, that they are getting better, that they are stronger, that, even if they go across and they get shit on in Melbourne, like they can do this. They can continue to improve, and they can continue to really compete. And I love it. I really do love it, because I'm a big fan of those guys. Obviously been following their career for a long time. But I know how much this win meant to them. And I'm really happy that they could do it here in Philly.
All right, let's move on to talk about the other NA teams. We got 2 of them. One is going to be now known as Nouns. Like, underwhelming. A little disappointing. Can't believe that they really... I mean, not getting out of groups is hard, but in the group that they were in with Apex and Team 1, and Team 1 is the other team I want to talk about, like, to just not get out of... I mean, I guess we can talk about ATK in a bit, but, like...
Are you really that disappointed by that?
I am, because I think that they're heading into the RMR, and I think they're signed by the org. They finally get some things. They have some momentum behind them. I'm disappointed in them for not achieving more, because I would have liked them to they have a chance in the RMR when they face EG. That's their first matchup. That is a matchup that they legitimately could upset. If they do, they go 1-0, and I would have liked to see more from them to have more confidence leading into the RMR.
All right, so playing devil's advocate to that. First off, I do have a question about the Nouns signing. I don't know if you guys know this. Are they signed to Nouns, or are they sponsored for the RMR? Because I couldn't get a full read on that from what I read of their statements.
They have contracts.
Okay.
That is what I know. They have contracts. So the length of the contracts, unclear, but they have contracts. So it could be like a 6-month thing.
I love NFTs, apparently. Anyway, I don't understand the world, but whatever. That's fine. I'm happy. Anyone who supports North American CS,
PNGs.
You're down. We're down with it. But here's the thing. Let's talk about it, right? Okay. They upset Apex. That's a huge moment. That's a crazy moment. That's exciting. They make it through. the LCQ. Wait, actually, no, they didn't play the LCQ. Never mind about that part.
No, because they had groups.
So they make it through, but they lose to Team 1 as well. This is a really good Team 1 squad. Team 1 is looking polished. They were looking really good at the event. I honestly thought Team 1 could have made it into the final if they didn't run up against EG White, right? Like, I think Team 1 versus Big would have been a really interesting bracket draw if it had been on the other side. So I don't know, man. I'm not that disappointed with their performance here. It would have been great to see them beat Apex twice, right? But the classic, you always learn more from a loss than a win. Like, the urge to topple the crown was gone. Danny's spite had tamped down a little bit, so you didn't get the crazy Dan Wu overperformance. I think the reality for this team right now is, in order for Nouns to perform, you are going to need the Danny pop-off. You need him to not just be good, you need him to be superhuman, because that's just the way this team is built right now. The thing that is most concerning for me about Nouns is Cynic has been invisible on the AWP by and large. Yeah. He's calling. It's a tough transition, but he's an individually talented player, and having him disappear this much with the IGL duties coming on, with the opping duties as well, 2 roles that he's not really done that much before and that he's still figuring out, that's troubling for this team, because he can be a really big impact player, but he's not in this current iteration. He's not in the roles that he's playing either. Typically, he's playing as a lurk. You want him to be a lurk. Like, that's what he's done traditionally through his career, a rifle lurk, and he's incredible at it.
Right.
Not so much within this team, and I think that's the piece that's really missing for them. That's the piece where, if they can figure that out, if they can figure out a way for Cynic to have impact with that AWP, or give 60 the up and have Cynic go back to doing Cynic things, even with calling. I recognize that it's hard to call while you're lurking, but I honestly think that could work out for them. Just because, like, he can be an impact player, and he's not right now. And that, to me, is the piece that's missing. Bewell's good. 60, inconsistent but monstrous when he's on. George will run at your face. Jazz is there to be a bit more of a calm, supportive presence, because he's the one who's got his head screwed on a little bit. So if you get Cynic online, to me, that's the piece that's missing for this team to really make them competitive.
Yeah, I think to Ryan's point earlier as well, like, going into the RMR, like, it's important for them to have, like, stronger results, I think, because, like, I don't think we're going to talk about it on this podcast, but, like, the Rotterdam close qualifier was there as well, and Team 1 played Nouns twice, and 2 of them twice, and I think Team 1, like, as good as they've been playing, and, like, Mobs has been coming online big time for them, I think at the RMR, Team 1 has to be one of those teams that Nouns are like, okay, these guys are beatable if we have any chance of getting close to qualifying. So,
Team 1, I think, definitely showed up well enough for what they needed. They fought their way through the LCQ. They came on and they made their way into playoffs, and I think that's what everyone expected from them. I think that they've been shakier before this, and I think since this Philadelphia performance, they've actually been a better team, which is really, really good, because the team should be good. Like, Mobs, TRK, like, this is a solid team. Pace is always kind of reliable. Like, I don't see any real big faults in this team that, like, is glaring and causing problems. So I'm hopeful that, these guys can continue their performances going onward.
The exciting thing about this Team 1 is actually going to be the player that most people aren't even looking at, which is Maluk. Maluk, as an individual, here's the thing about Maluk. He never gets to keep his rosters. He never gets to keep his rosters. And you can see the bell curve of his team's performance, and also, well, his team's a farm team, so they sell players on. As soon as someone gets good enough, they sell players on. And Maluk is the one who's left behind to rebuild the new squad. And you can tell from his individual performance when he has new players, right? A new team gets built, new players come over from Brazil, they're teaching them the system, they're teaching them how to calm, they're teaching them how to compete at the next level. Maluk's individual form hits the skids, hits the shitter. Can't do anything with that op because he's busy trying to figure out, you go here, you go here, you go here. Yeah. Well, now he got all his old toys back. He got all his old friends back. TRK came back in. Mobs came back in. Pace has been here the entire time. IDK's back in. Like, it's getting the band back together. We're talking 2018, 2019 Team 1 here. And so Maluk doesn't have to micromanage. They know how to play the game. They know how to play the way that Maluk wants to play. Yeah. And so Maluk can go back to clicking heads. So his individual performance has been a huge shift for them. I don't think he's going to be like the firepower focal point. I don't think he ever should. But when that op is hitting, that op is hitting. He went like 25-2 in a first half of Inferno. I don't even remember which matchup it was, but it was disgusting to watch live. He's good, man. Team 1 is good. I think that I think they have a real chance of making it to Rio, which is nuts, because Team 1 6 months ago, I would not have thought they had a snowball's chance in hell of making it out of RMR. But legitimately, I think it's a long shot. But I think that this team one could qualify for the major, and then I would have mob stickers.
Mob stickers would be so nice. Okay, well that's shocking. Finally, we should talk about ATK. I thought that their performance was a little frustrating, and I felt kind of bad for them given everything that's kind of happened with them recently. Their contract situation, not being able to make it to the first RMR Open qualifier. They easily made it way through groups. They didn't really have anything too difficult. They 2-0'd EG Black. They 2-0'd Black Hand. They made it all the way through. Like, very solid. And then playoffs happened, and they played Apex, and they got 2-0'd. And they apparently had scrimmed Apex before, so Apex knew what to expect. Like, tough. It happens. I think move on. I think at the RMR, they're going to do fine. I don't think they'll go 0-3. I think they'll go 1-3. Like, I think they're just in a tough position, honestly, as a team.
They're interesting. I think ATK is hitting the point where we sort of need to see a bit of the proof in the pudding. I understand that coming off the player break now, there were outside factors, there were outside conditions, there was weirdness with the org and with what's going on. And now I think they're signed to like 6-month contracts or something like that. So it's not exactly a long-term plan still. But I think this 6 months is sort of the do or die for this particular roster, right? It's always been kind of an odd marriage where you have the South Africans, you have a Swede, you had a Norwegian, now you've got the 2 Americans, right? Like it's always been a bit of an odd situation. They're all competing in Monterrey. And I think the team has the potential to be really damn good. I think that there are the pieces there. I think Bowden can do it on the op. I think Swisher can be a huge piece for the squad when he's showing up. I think MOTM, he's what he's always been, which is a ripper of an entry.
Off. He just needs to be more consistent as a player.
MOTM?
He's
an entry, man. Sometimes you're just going to die.
I know. And it's tough.
Sometimes you're just going to die. It happens. I think this team can be really good.
Should we just clip that? Sometimes you're just going to die. Is that the title of this podcast? Sometimes
that's literally
the
life of an entry. Is sometimes you're just going to die. That's what I do in my teams, except I don't shoot back. I just die to get space. Throw the flash and die. But
or your util.
Genuinely, I think this ATK has the pieces to be more competitive than they are, but I think they need to be. The Apex defeat was really disappointing. Overtime in the first game, right? Went to double OT. Could have been something there. If ATK had closed that out, we'd be talking about this a whole lot differently. But they just didn't do it. And then they ran out of juice on Dust 2 and got smoked. So I don't know, man. I mean, I think the RMR is the big one. I think they need to look competitive at the RMR, even if they don't make it. They need to look competitive to have us believing in this team, because I don't think they have a whole ton more opportunities. They're doing really well in Challenger League right now. Qualifying for a conference spot would be dope. That would be huge. I don't know whether that would be enough to keep the org in. I don't know whether that would be enough to keep the team together. But that would be really interesting if they could qualify for a conference spot. That would be the next big opportunity for this team to show up.
Oh, yeah. All right, let's move on to Pro League, because we still have a lot to get through and not a lot of time. Complexity. Fucking amazing. Spectacular. Goddamn. Star Spangled Banner. Awesome. I love it. Everything is good. Fuck Astralis. Fuck Heat. Fuck Ents. Literally, this is the greatest team ever in the history of the universe. I love Complexity. Like, I had no expectations going in. I thought this was going to be such a tough group. I was like, okay, maybe they can get 2-3. Maybe they can squeak by. And they come in and they just lay their cards all on the table. Halzerk looks to be the greatest addition, not in terms of raw skill and raw power, not in terms of his own individual performance, but because of what he does for the team, which is he is the replacement for OC. He's not the replacement for Junior. He's the replacement for OC. Junior was never the replacement for OC, and this team revolved around the way that OC played. And so Halzerk is now the true heir to that opping role, which is why I think Complexity is finally going to have their groove back. They're finally going to look like a better team because they have the opper that they need. Junior, love him, hate him. I still think that he's a good opper in his very core, but he was never going to succeed in this team because he was such a different player. And now that you have almost a like-for-like replacement with Halzerk, who is also just a weirdo, and the Complexity is full of weirdos, it works out amazingly. And that's that is my rant right here. If I'm just pumped.
Yeah, I'm super happy about the way that things are going for Complexity now, and I think the biggest thing for them at the moment is the fact that they all look happy. Like when I was when I seen them in Cologne, I've never seen a more emo group of individuals in my life. Like they were all just like sitting in their chairs, like the one person would turn, say one thing to the other, and then just go back to silence. And I was like, they seem so sad, like, and rightfully so at the time. Like I think they were on like what 13 series loss streak or something mental like that.
Something
Because,
terrible.
Yeah, so like I think Halzer's added a lot in terms of personality, which is like an aspect that gets often overlooked. Like they could have brought in like a quiet emo opera that like wouldn't have said much to the group, just went in, did his thing.
Yeah.
But the fact that he gets along so well with them, like you can see them all smiling when the cameras turn to them, and like that helps performance so much. Grim has been insane, which is like the first time that we've been able to say that since like Triumph. So
but that's part of the thing is that he's getting unlocked. He's finally getting kind of unlocked, especially within this team, because no one's having to be hampered by an opera that doesn't fit the system, and everyone else is trying to play the system. Halzerk is allowing these players to get back to where they can succeed. Mike, you wanted to jump in there. I do.
You're doing a lot of the opera that fits the system, and I get it. There's a fit the system, but the reality is also they just had completely lost faith in their teammate as an individual, as had anyone who watched that.
I didn't want to say that.
Junior just isn't internationally competitive right now. Like it's definitely the mental game. It's definitely the confidence game. You know, when he's here shitting on NA, he's shitting on NA because he knows he's better than them, but he's never gotten over that hurdle with international competitions. And operas, frankly, have to be a little insane. If my opera's in the server, I don't care if he's a shitter up against Simple. I want him to think he's better. I want him to think he's better because that's the only way you can take the kind of fights that an opera needs to take. And so Junior lost that. Somewhere along the way, he lost that. Never really got that for international competition. He was not reliable for complexity, and you could see they tried to rework their system 37 different ways to try and figure out the way that Junior needed to play, and it never worked, and it put everyone else in uncomfortable roles. So it's not so much about, I mean, look, Halzerk is good. Halzerk is good individual.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
But it's also about everyone being back in their spots, actually getting played in the positions they want to play, playing with the site partners they want to play with, getting the comms that they're playing with, instead of trying to figure out how to make one player comfortable by shifting everyone else around. That's what's been wrong with complexity for the last 6 months. So that's changed, and it's awesome because this is the complexity team that I thought we were going to get back in December when this org was coming together. This is the complexity team that every NA person was excited for. Is them looking like this, right? It's about everyone else. It's about the other 4 pieces looking like who they are. And then Halzerk, he could just be like a competent opera and it would be fine. But he's a good opera, and that's really cool. It's also awesome for Halzerk because I think he got unfairly maligned by how much that Dignitas team was the retirement community, where they were just never going to be that competitive. They were always really disappointing to watch because, frankly, Freiburg calling was massively out of tune with the game. And so they had the most stale T-sides you've ever seen. They were running meta from a year ago. It was a really frustrating team to watch at times. And so you never got to see the peacock strut. You never got to see the tail spread out there and Halzerk get his mullety face going. So it's really awesome to see him in this younger team where he can fly, he can strut, he can show us his wings. He can really, frankly, fuck on him, which is cool. It's really cool to see in the server. He's got a lot of flair. He's a solid opera. The mullet is incredible. He's grabbing floppy ass. He's living a good life, dude. He's living a good life. So I'm really excited about complexity. I think that obviously making it out of groups is awesome. Would have loved to see them not have to worry about making it out of groups, but losses to Heroic and Mouse, you can't be too upset about that with the way Mouse is looking. No. The Heroic game's the only one where they really weren't in it. So otherwise, I mean, you got to be really happy with this complexity team. I think that they're gonna keep improving as well. I think that this is still the beginning of it. I think one of the biggest things when you're talking about replacing OC, one of the biggest things OC did for this team was calm. And Halzerk, even if he's already improving in that regard, it's still his first time calming in English. When we talked to him during the RMR stream, he was talking about, I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be to switch my brain into calming in English. And it's just hard. It just takes time. Anytime you learn a new language, it takes time. Even if you're fluent in that language, thinking in it is different. And once you hit that point where you're thinking in English, it changes from you thinking in Norwegian and then translating it, or even thinking in Swedish and translating it if you had been fully Dignitas converted, to just thinking in English and being able to calm without that millisecond of delay. So I think that they're only going to improve. Halzerk is going to improve, not in what he does individually, but in what he brings to the team. I'm really excited for complexity, and I'm so happy that this worked out. This move worked out, because if this turned into one of those rosters where we never really got to see the promise of what we expected out of it, I was gonna fucking chop off a toe, man. This would have been that would have been the most disappointing one. I love these players. I've always known that they could be legit at an international level, and I'm so happy they're getting to do it now.
All right, so let's talk about the other European that's joining an American roster, trying to make them better. That is Yakinder with Liquid.
Yes.
So
let's go.
So the RMR official things came out today. Yakinder's on it. No surprises. We know this is happening. We also know that it's in a weird situation of whether or not he's signing or how the deal is working out. It's all up in the air. That's the most confusing part. But there was an interview that we're going to post today. I think probably right after I get after this, I have to double check the edits. But basically, before the Movistar game, he went ahead and said, our team is shit. Like, he didn't really hold back. He was like, yeah, all the guys went back to NA, basically played FPL, and now they suck. And it was like, oh, this is like not good. He's like, no. So I think the exact quote is, my guys went to the US for a while to see family and everyone. So we're all back down a bit. Our individual and team play skill got worse. So this is not necessarily a warm up, but it's going to be survival.
I think that's a bit knee-jerk.
How do you feel about that?
I think that's a bit knee-jerk, honestly. Like, I think Movistar caught them off guard. There's obviously, they had the honeymoon period at Cologne. They had that really good, run where they made, what was it? Quarterfinals. No one really expected them to do anything from it. Everyone was on a high. You come back from a player break. Liquid coming back from a player break. Who would have thought? But I don't know. I think that's a bit knee-jerk. It's the first game of the group. There's a lot to go. You got the victory in the end as well. So, you did manage to grind it out. So,
was that interview before or after the game?
Before.
Okay,
yes.
So here's what I'm going to say.
Okay.
First off, Yekinar is coming from the Outsiders team. I don't know. Maybe we're calling them VP again. I'm not really sure on that one.
No, we call them Outsiders.
Suffice it to say, they don't sugarcoat things.
No.
The CIS region does not sugarcoat things. It is a very different culture in terms of the way that you talk about your team. If you ever want to get a sense of that, go watch a Jerry interview. It's just different. You're very honest. You're much more likely to downplay your team and say you're a dog shit, even if you were crushing, than you are to big up them. It's just a different culture. There's a different, it's pessimism, cynicism isn't even quite it. It's just a different cultural perspective. Yeah. I don't know how that pertains to Yekindar individually. He seems like a pretty happy dude. But talking about your team and being very frank about, I don't think we're where we need to be is very part of the course. It's not as disastrous as if one of the NA players had been like, yeah, we're dog shit. That's much more concerning. Yekindar, that's just him being honest. He doesn't think they're playing the way they're supposed to be playing. And I think the Movistar game is a big indicator of that. That should not have been anywhere near close in a 3-map series against this Movistar team that's struggling, having lost some pious.
Martinez did look like he was just some pious in disguise. That guy was
But
insane.
Here's the thing. Martinez, that's very exciting for Movistar because I think that they can then get back to an exciting level, but you're still losing what Sampaias brought in terms of a year of chemistry, years of playing with these guys, knowing how to call within a CS roster, knowing how the columns need to work perfectly. Even if his clicky, shoot is perfect, there's a lot of other intangibles that take time to develop. And if he's genuinely a 1-for-1 swap with Sampaias, then Movistar have hit the damn lottery. But I don't think so. I think it'll take them a little while longer just to get back to that level, which was, side note, an overperformance to begin with. But we don't need to get into Movistar. This is the US podcast.
The question here is, do we think that they're favorites to qualify out of this group?
Yes.
Liam?
Liquid, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Still should be.
And talking about not favorites to get out of this group, our boys at Evil Geniuses! Do we think they win a single game? This is the level that we're at. Do we think that they're going to even win a single game? Very legitimate.
I think a lot of people gave them a tougher time yesterday when they seen the scoreline in the second map. On Inferno, they actually did look pretty good. They played it pretty close. You could see the mistakes that they were making. They were losing ecos where they were getting caught off guard with 15 seconds left. But you're going to have those mistakes in a team like this when you have a younger player like Hex. This is his first big tournament properly, Pro League. I don't know. I think they can beat Movistar depending on if they show up the same way that they did on Inferno. And it's probably just a case that their map pool isn't as stretched at the moment. You're going to play Cloud9 on Dust 2. you're never going to win that matchup with a newer team. But in like the likes of Inferno, maybe they've practiced like a Mirage or something. Like they can win maps, and I think, like Mike said, like Movistar are going to take time to get together with Martinez in terms of chemistry and stuff. So I don't think it's doom and gloom for an 0-5. That would be hilarious considering they're like 0-15 now.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think it's like Cloud9 are like favorites for this group as well. So I don't think it's as catastrophic as we are probably making out to be.
Yeah, Cloud9 is a really damn good team. I mean, that's the thing. Like, we can't forget that. Cloud9, the question about this group was always going to be, is anyone going to be competitive against Cloud9? Right now, it's looking like Furia, maybe, and I'll be curious to see what form Liquid is in by the time they hit that matchup. But that was always going to be the question for this group. Cloud9 was the measuring stick, right? And if you really thought EG was going to take it to Cloud9, then I want whatever you were huffing.
If maybe they could have had map 1. It was close. It was 12-12. Like that,
Inferno always is.
It always is.
But anyway, like genuinely, I think that Movistar are vulnerable. I think that Eternal Fire are vulnerable. Either of those could turn into a series. And right now, EG just need that first series. They just need that one series to come through. I will say, I still don't really get what they're doing with this main roster. The Nealon pick is so bizarre to me, and they got to prove it to me because holy shit, that was a out of left field. That was a real like curveball. Like we're gonna go get Nealon.
Isn't Alex still technically free? Where's Alex?
Yeah,
No clue what's going on with that dude.
He's gone from Fnatic. Like I think he's like
great.
He doesn't have a contract.
Just saying.
Maybe an NA org offered him a contract again. He got a flashback to Cloud9 and said, "Hell no, I'm out of here. No, thank you. Don't talk to me again. Never talk to me or my son ever again."
He's benched on Fnatic.
He's benched on Fnatic. Okay,
he's still on the bench,
maybe he's still attached. So maybe there are buyout issues there. Listen, I don't know.
I doubt it.
I think overall from the group, I would Furia. Oh yeah, I mean you should talk about Furia as well.
We'll talk about Furia.
They're playing right now against Movistar. I think they either 16-0 or they should have 16-0. Like they're insane gamers.
Like 16-3 or 16-4.
16-3, insane. They're easily well, actually now they're losing map 2.
It's Nuke. It's Nuke. They're on T side, Ryan.
Nuke, yeah.
Ryan, you gotta stop reacting to scorelines. Just stop the numbers.
I love Ryan's Twitter when a team loses their map pick. Oh, they're losing the series.
100%. Always. That's always how it works. If you lose your map pick, you lose the series. I mean, come on. Statistically, like the likelihood of you losing the series if you lose your map pick, it's greater. It is greater. I'm not wrong on
top level CS in current meta, it's honestly not that big of a deal because everyone plays every map.
I'm the host. Stop telling me I'm wrong.
But it's the easiest thing to tell you.
Oh my god.
I can't lie to the audience. I mean, I just got to be honest, man.
Listen. All right. So, how do we feel about Furia? I think they're good. I've worried that they've been weak, and I've worried that they might not have been as strong. But obviously, that first map of where they easily just bashed Movistar and as Liquid had trouble over and over, it's a little bit of an issue there.
I think Furia will easily make playoffs here. I'm not concerned about that in the slightest. The big question for Furia isn't about Pro League, although looking good at Pro League would be really encouraging. I think Furia needs to be the best Brazilian team in Rio. That's the big question for them right now, right? Like this should be their moment to like triumphantly step into the spotlight as the hometown heroes. If we get a Furia Imperial matchup at some point, it'll be chef's kiss, amazing. Possibly we'll burn down the arena, but worth it. But legitimately, I think this Furia roster is they're in their proof in the pudding arc of this next 6-month period, and particularly the major run, where Art has to show that he hasn't been figured out because so many teams feel like they've figured out Furia. And so now it's about that adaptation, right? That's the challenge of this offseason for them. That's the challenge headed into it. They didn't change their roster, right? They've kept it consistent. So it's about reinvention. At this point, they've had 6 months to figure out this team, right? To get used to safe, have safe, be safe. Good. Quesarado and Yuri are still monsters. Drop is doing perfectly fine. Maybe he could be better, but whatever. It's not about the individuals. It's about Art proving that his thing still works now that it's not a surprise element for anybody anymore. Now that people know what to expect, it's about that consistency.
Yeah.
I gotta agree with Mike, to be honest. And like we had the podcast when I was in Cologne, and Ryan, you seemed pretty worried about Furia because like they didn't perform at that event. Right. They had a bit of a bad run before it as well. But I remember saying they just need this player break. They looked like, from seeing them around, they just seemed like one of those teams that were just dying to get into the player break. They knew that they weren't going to do anything at Cologne. Let's just all eyes on the major. And I think, yeah, to Mike's point, Rio's the real big testing point for them because that's home crowd. It's the first time that they're all going to be playing in front of a big Brazilian crowd. So I don't think they were a big team but they weren't at Belo Horizonte. I don't even think they were together at that point.
I think they might have played the DreamHack Sao Paulo event.
Yeah, but like Rio is the big testing point for this team, I think. And if they bomb at Rio, then yeah, you got to start looking at changes. But where do you go with it?
Yeah, I know. I think that there's a lot of other good teams that have really cropped up in the Brazilian scene recently that could have been additions to this Furia team, and I guess we don't really necessarily know. I mean, let's just quickly look to wrap up here with the RMR. As we like the first matches, like Furia is going to play Infinity, Imperial plays Sharks, Liquid plays Team 1, Pain versus Arctic, Complexity versus ATK, MIBR versus Oplano, which is an org now. I thought that was just like the name of like the post MIBR thing. Who knows?
No, they always were trying to make that an org, and it's like Kanji's thing now, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. Nouns versus EG and 00 Nation versus 9Z. I mean, when you just run this thing through, it's like this is pretty easy for like Furia. It looks like it's going to be pretty easy overall for that team. So it's I'm going to be impressed to see what happens.
Furia and Liquid game for 3-0.
Would be interesting.
I'm just saying, I think Imperial's going to be pretty damn good, to be honest with you.
Oh,
Cello
finally,
edition,
another Imperial believer, dude.
I believe solid. I mean, Cello's a nutter. They're going to have the individual form. The motivation is going to be at an all-time high for Imperial, right?
Oh, absolutely.
To be the team representing the fans in Brazil, right? Like that moment, if you have Fallen and Fur stepping onto the stage to represent Brazil at Rio, that is going to be an incredible crowd. So they know that. They know it. This is the singular focus for them. Nothing else in this calendar year matters as much as this moment, right? They put FNX in the coach role purely for the major memes, as far as I can understand. I don't really get why else you would do it. So that's got to be it. Cello's a nutter. I think this Imperial team is going to be really ferocious in this major run.
Yeah, I think this will be good. I'm hoping for like Pain to impress a little bit as well. I could see them really trying to sneak in here and potentially making it through. I think
00 Nation, I think, might be another good pick.
Yeah, I am high on 00 Nation. My 6 to get through are Furia, Liquid, Complexity, 00 Nation, Imperial, and DG. I'm a believer, man. I'm a believer. We need 3 teams. Need them.
I love it.
If not EG, it could probably be Team 1.
Pain.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Pain looks pretty damn good. With the
Pain
new
does
additions.
look good. Pain does look good. But the thing is, we need more of the actual Americas teams to make it through rather than just the South American teams. We need to boost up our rankings.
Is this a hopium pick, Ryan?
This is our hopium. I need more and more.
Good luck with that.
All right. Do you have any of your 6 picked out here? Did you change mine? How would you change mine?
I think Furia, Liquid, and Call are locked pretty much.
Yeah.
I think MIBR are in with a shout as well. I think they've been pretty good. 1 as a dark horse, like you said earlier, Mike. But I think looking at the field, it would be tough for 1 to make it through unless they just get an insane seeding bracket. Like I think they're seeded pretty low as well, which does not help their case.
Things always get weird in the RMR, right? You're going to lose to Liquid round 1 probably, unless Liquid really fuck up. So you're going to be down into those 0-1 games. It could get weird, right? Come up against an Infinity of Sharks. Like, I don't know. I think Team 1 can make some noise. I'd like to see it. With our luck, it'll be like Team 1 versus EG first round of the 0-1 games.
Of course,
you never know. I am very excited for this NA RMR, or for this Americas RMR. Sorry, I think it's going to be quite sick. I think that it's going to be cool to have everyone on scene too. It's in Stockholm, which is not ideal. Would have been better to have it somewhere in the Americas.
What do you mean? That's great. That's like the best thing that they could have done. They're sending me now instead of Ryan.
Yeah, no.
Well,
they're sending you. I'm sending you because I have a wedding in Mexico. All right, be lucky next time. if it's I'm making sure Blast is doing it in America. You're not going anywhere near this.
Ryan's
shit.
not daddy going to a friend's
Oh
wedding
my
instead
God.
of the RMR.
Not even a friend's, it's a family's wedding, all right?
Family
So,
wedding, even
Come on.
less daddy. Friends of the
No.
family you choose, Ryan. Less daddy here.
I'm not doing this with you.
Blood is thinner than NACS.
I'm not doing this with you.
I don't know what else we got, but anyway, yeah, that NARMR is gonna be a good time. Whoever's covering it's gonna have a real good time, huh? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But I gotta go, guys. So I guess we gotta wrap up this podcast.
We're gonna wrap this up. Any last words? Any last words, guys?
Follow me on Twitter if you don't already.
Plug your shit, Mike. Plug your shit.
Again, if you're in here, you probably do follow me on Twitter. I've got a new podcast. That's fun. Caught in the Crossfire. A new episode will be coming out soon. That's over on Alan Hendry's YouTube channel, so follow that too. And yeah, get ready for the NA Americas. I keep saying that. Get ready for the Americas RMR. It's gonna be banging. I mean, I say NA because I'm hoping we'll make teams through, but the Brazilians are looking ferocious, man.
Are you going? Can you leak?
Blood.
Can you leak? Are you going to be a caster?
I don't know what you're talking about.
All right. Well, hopefully I will get to see you there, Mike. It would probably be my proudest moment as being one of your.
You
friends
won't. You'll be in Mexico.
Well, in the mornings I will be on the laptop working. Right. Then in the afternoons I'll be on the beach. Leon, plug your shit.
At Level CS on Twitter. And writing over at Dust2US, where you can find all the best NA and Americas coverage.
We're doing an extended coverage of ESL Pro League, doing all the transcribing of the pregame and postgame interviews. We'll be doing the extended coverage as that. We're going to also then be jumping immediately into the Americas RMR right after Pro League. So make sure that you stay tuned to Dust2.us. I'm Ryan Friends at Dust2.us. That's DarfMike, and that's Liam Slevin. Thank you all for watching Dust2 podcast, and you can get it anywhere in audio form on wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.
Peace.